We're back! I bet most of you thought we wouldn't be, but we are. Level 2, the computer game, Level 2, Part 2. Yeah, this went about as well as I thought it would. It didn't go great, but I got some money back, and with that money, we've got a new set of parts. Check them out. I figured out, with the help of some commenters, some pretty amazing amount of comments, like 10. That's heaps. So thanks for that. But we figured out that I think we got to go lower, because the whole vibe of this thing is not to get people having awesome mad rigs for cheap. The idea is to get more people with a computer that may not have been able to have one before. Maybe. But that doesn't mean you got to put in a 3060 and game at 4K. That's just, I did that because that's probably what I kind of like to do. So that's not the point of this channel, though. So the moving towards a less expensive design, we've got a really basic 450 watt power supply, which is fine. It sounds low. Everyone else has got like mad million watt power supplies. This is 450, but that is going to work when you're plugging it into this awesome little motherboard here, which is already gone, but it holds this beast, which is a 10th gen chip, and yeah, obviously that's 2 gens old, but it is still plenty of processing power until you want more processing power, and then you go out and you buy an 11th gen chip, and that will fit in this board, and it will do more stuff like PCIe 4 and things that this chip won't do. But in a way, it seems kind of fun to max out this chip, doing as best as it can for as little money as possible, and give you the choice of putting in a faster chip later. But you pair it with a beast of a graphics card like we're going to, sort of, and it'll play games fine. So that's the whole point. Hard drive, SSD, obviously, M.2, because who can be bothered with cables? That's like the best thing to happen to computers in ages. M.2, instead of bloody parallel cables or SATA cables. Graphics, look at this thing. Probably still a touch overboard, to be honest. I'm still used to paying a lot for graphics cards, so when I see one for like $300, I go, whoa, that's so cheap. But turns out, yeah, they do a whole lot of power for not much money, so probably still a touch overboard, but you win. So there you go. Ooh, look at this thing. So I thought young adult might want just a touch of bling, and for 20 odd dollars you can pick up one of these things, which is going to add RGB. Long story coming on that one. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But look at this. Anyone seen that guy on TikTok who like hides his bits with a cloth, and then he pulls away the cloth and it's a funny message under the cloth? Look at this. Ba-ba! It's Phanteks under some cheap label. It's actually a Phanteks fan, so that's pretty awesome. It's really quiet, does RGB. And here's the bit that everyone fast forwards because it's lame. Putting in things that only fit in one way and you can't really stuff it up. I don't know why there's so many million videos on this. I managed to fit the square into the square, and then I'm a badass for not taking off the plastic shield and making it pop out, but then it doesn't actually pop out and it's super unsatisfying. Yeah, that's how a CPU goes in anyway. No one ever shows people taking a CPU out. That's probably something I should do a little video on, because yeah, you're probably going to want to take this one out and put in an 11th gen later. But, alright, work on that. Now the fan. Easy, right? Wrong. You're about to see this turn into a massive saga. And it's all in the interest of making a nice computer. So it's for the right reasons, but you won't believe how long I can make this take. But it's to do with that cable. Look at the state of it. It's ugly. I'm trying every which way to see less of it, but it's there. It's right on top. Green, yellow, up against a red RAM slot. It's just fugly. So you try and just manage around it, but it's always there. So you'll see how I overcome that in a moment. Bit of memory, RAM it in. Kind of worked out well. There's a red RAM and a red slot. Looks awesome. Okay, so this is where I'm like, nah, can't take it. Gotta do something about this cable. And I do a bit of work on cars sometimes. I'm not good at that, so don't ask about that. But I do know a little bit about wiring, and with some real basic tools and skills, you can make a big difference in this. And in PC world, everyone seems to just order things from Cable Mod. That's fine, except for the awesome modders. There's guys on BitTech. Those guys are crazy. Shout out to them. They do a way better version of what I'm about to do, and that is to depin this connector, which is super easy compared to a lot of car connectors. This is like, you just need a sharp pointy thing, one of those iPod, iPhone, SIM card slot pusher things is going to work. Get the pins out of there, because what we want to do is fit on some heat shrink. That's going to cover all this mess and make it look black. And in car world, they have a really nice type of heat shrink that's flexible after you shrink it, and that's from a company called Radeon, and the model is DR25. And every car guy uses that to make their wiring look really nice and still be flexible. A lot of cheap heat shrink goes really hard when you shrink it, so I don't know, it would still work, but it's not very nice. So you just sort of look at it, size it up, get an idea of what diameter tube you need. This is a 1/4 inch, or is that an eighth? Can't remember. It's small. And ooh, flexi. Yeah, check it. And that is gonna go over these wires. But another thing I've learned from car world is that if you put the wires in straight, they don't bend and they're not flexible, which again is not that important. I'm being OTT here, but it takes all of 10 seconds to twist them. This is not the final twist I'm going to do, but I think the footage is there just to show you what a twist is, as if you don't know. And so it turns out that the shrink won't go over the 4 pins. I tried a couple of times and they wouldn't go through the tube nicely, so I'm going to do it the hard way and desolder the soldered ends from the fan itself. And I'm making a note here of the color code, because I've got 2 fans sitting right next to each other and they're actually in different order, so always easy to keep track of which pin goes in which order. Get that label out of the way to see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to use a thing called wick, which is braided copper wire with flux in it. And when you put it on top of solder and put some heat on it, it soaks up the solder from the join, and then the wire basically just falls off the terminal. And it's a really tidy way of getting solder off. There's suckers and things from the past are garbage. This stuff's awesome. But I'll still fast forward it because it's kind of boring. In hindsight, I should really have taken that RAM out of the way. It's a pain in the bum. But whatever. And out she comes. I put the plug back on because I'm going to twist it up, as you know. And now the plug can stay on. Found the right length and cut the wires about an inch, if we're in America, shorter. And make it all nice and tidy. God, this is boring. Needs to go faster. Faster next time. Yay, twist. It's quite pretty. Look at that. And then heat shrink goes on. It's got a thing called a recovery percentage or something, where when you shrink it down, it obviously shrinks side to side, but also length shrinks a little. So you gotta overestimate it just a touch, because you know it'll shrink down and be shorter than it was. So you gotta be careful of that. That's also very boring. But the wires are going back on now, so that's more interesting. They're in there now, and this is the shrinky bit. This is, so I got a hot air gun just blowing on it from a little ways away. Wants to get hot but not too hot, and it shrinks down. It's clever stuff. You should go get some if you haven't got any. Takes a few seconds, so I'll speed it up again. And then it's done. Look at that. Black wire. It was a pretty long-winded way to get there, but looks way better now. Hard drive goes in. It's got these toolless clips. It's kind of cool. I don't know if it's done to save money on a screw, but I actually would probably choose to have them myself. The plastic, and when you first see them you go, oh, that seems cheap, but actually it's a toolless way to hold your hard drive. Like, I get it. Screws are great, but if you don't need them, why bother? And you'll find out later, turns out this slot's no good. It needs to go in the other slot because PCIe revisions, chip didn't like it in that slot. So anyway, long story. Power supply, super easy, 4 screws, nothing to it. I/O shield, push push push. Motherboard in. This case had a setting pin. It was like one of the standoffs had a little lump on it. It held it in place while I did the screws. It's quite nice. I really like this case actually. It's very cheap. God, what is the thing even called? It's a MaCube 110. MaCube. Not MaxCube. I thought it was MaxCube for the longest time, but it's MaCube, whatever you want to say. And it's super simple, but does everything you need. Fits radiators and all sorts. In fact, I thought that would be funny to take the cheapest case I could find and actually water cool the heck out of it, and I don't know, go way OTT. I mean, some of these cases they water cool are like $1,000 for the case, and it's crazy. $1,000 for a case just to hold the thing that you're then spending $5,000 to $10,000 more dollars on. It's like, it'd be way more interesting to see a $75 case, New Zealand dollar case. It's like 40 American dollars with a mad water cooling setup. That'd be way more interesting. Fan. This is the fan that was in the back. I took it off the back, put it in the front because you never see it in the front, and bang in that mean RGB fan in the back. You'll see all of that. A few more wires. I'm glad this is fast because damn, that's boring. Cable ties are good. Do them up softly at first and then pull them tight. And look at that. That is the gist of the wiring. Just got the graphics card mess down the bottom, but hold your horses and you'll see how that pans out. And pow! Cabled. Card in. That was, you didn't need to see that. And cable tie. Hold it all tight and flat. It looks awesome. Boot her up. This always nervous when first time, but there it is. At least I got a picture. Pretty normal looking stuff. Memory's running slow, but memory's there, so that's all good. First thing I always do is the BIOS. Don't know if you could see it there, but it was on there. It's on F6. I saw on the website they had an F7, so pop it on your USB stick. Tell it to do it. Are you sure? Yeah, pretty sure. Does its thing. Yeah, are you sure? Yeah. Yeah, it does it. Takes a little while. Took 2.5 minutes, but you get the benefit of editing. It's done in mere seconds. And there it is. And it was about here, just turned on XMP to get the memory speed up a bit, which is cool. But I realized the hard drive wasn't showing up under M.2 there. You got NA. And it turned out it's because the CPU supports PCIe 3.0, the chipset supports 4.0, the graphics card supports 4.0, and the hard drive supports 3.0. So mucked around with a bit and tried to force a couple of things, but the board doesn't have all the settings it would have been nice to have, so I wasn't able to get the hard drive to show up in the slot that talks directly to the CPU. So ended up plugging it into the chipset slot, the lower slot, and that runs at 3.0 speeds, which is still blazingly fast compared to a lot of hard drives out there. But it's that was something that took a little while to figure out, and again, you get the benefit of me having to waste that time instead of you. But it was interesting, and obviously later, if you had a PCIe 4.0 supported CPU, you'd probably be able to swap it back into the top slot and have it talk straight to the CPU and get even more performance. Alright, last thing, you probably noticed that on that power up the fan didn't glow. It spun, but it didn't glow. So that's the whole point. We're not going to have an RGB fan that doesn't do RGB. So it was funny though, because it didn't come with any cable, and even if it did, turns out there's 3 or 4 different DRGB, ARGB, every brand has their own thing, and a lot of things have different shape connectors. So I had to figure it out. If anyone's interested in what I figured out, more than happy to share. It's not rocket science, but it did take for me to have to make a cable from scratch using an old USB header connector, had to take a couple of pins out of it because they were ugly, and figure out which were which coming off the board and into the fan, and make the cable and make it somewhat good looking. Most of it's hidden, but still had to make sure it didn't short out and blah blah blah. But yeah, that was the thing that was missing that would make the fan not light up, and obviously we weren't going to have that. So given another couple of seconds, I'll be finished with this, and you'll see the fan light up. Check it out, red. It's total coincidence. The whole thing, all the bits that came with this PC just happened to be red by default. So it's a theme. I'm calling it a theme. I totally planned that. Anyway, so get Windows on there and then you can change it from red. And I just wanted to, it couldn't actually kind of believe that it was working so easily. There's like entire products out there that convert between different types of RGB and plugs. Like, it's all the same signal. You just got to join a couple of wires together and it works. Trendy flashing things, which I'm sure you love. It's all just a click away for you, the buyer. But it's a thing. I get it. I've had even neons under my car when I was 15. Had bloomin' neons when that was a thing, and I get it. Blink's cool. Lights are cool. So who am I to deny anyone a flashing coloured light? And there it is. Windows 11. Jeez, that's worth heaps. All included. Window on, tempered glass. This thing's got it all. It's literally a gamer's spec sheet. Wait for it. Here's the money shot. Bam! Portrait mode. Best damn glamour shots you've ever seen. Thank you. See you on part 3.